Alright, hello. Hope for the win again here on CP Thalassophobia B5I underscore fix underscore 2. I rats in your walls. Played this map quite a few times, I'd probably say the most, or at least some variants of it. So want to record a quick video, try to get my thoughts out. I know it'll be much faster than me trying to type and sketch out things. But overall, I'd say this is a pretty fun map, but it struggles quite a lot with, I would say, ineffective flanks, very kind of like spread out, making it an awkward map to kind of like attack, and quite an easy map to kind of defend. There's no real rotation required on the defense, you kind of just watch every door at once. But I'll go over that more as I get more into the map. For now, let's just try to like walk through it and walk through some of my thoughts. Spawn doors, pretty okay. This one is pretty deeply infiltrating, but it's pretty safe. If I do have one complaint, it's probably how sharp a lot of these corners are and how inset a lot of them are. So you can see it's very sharp angle, and it's very possible for Flanker to just kind of like jump up and land on you as like a heavy or pyro or whatever. Besides that, I think that routes like these really don't need to exist. Avoiding combat for this long and then doing very awkward like loop-de-loops, it just feels very weird. I think it's TF2 plays better when there's this kind of concrete front line and you aren't expecting to get randomly ambushed by behind. That's kind of, it just adds to people's feeling like, oh, it's like maze-like or it's labyrinthine. And overall, I think the map is actually pretty clean for its architectural style. Like it didn't really have problems with the visualization. It was just more kind of like routing, causing people to appear behind. But you essentially have your main route, which does not seem to be the central focus of combat. You have this left route, which makes sense. People feel more comfortable on an edge of the map. And then you have this right route, which splits into a tunnel and also goes through this kind of doorway, at least directly to the point. This is kind of what I mean when I say I'd like to be able to feel comfortable walking through a doorway. But walking through this space, there's several things that annoy me. First off, this corner is so deeply inset that anyone could just be hiding here. I actually did see like a silent revved up heavy here, just wait until like two could walk by and then just walk forward. So that's kind of a little bit awkward. I also am still not a huge fan of the free vision this class gives. So I get that it's probably to help inform players into rotating, and I think it makes sense on the point, so you can kind of see what's going on a little bit both ways. But for this one in particular, it means that it's very easy for me as a player to see players there, just bomb them, jump them, and it's kind of unfair for them because they didn't even know they were spotted. The the alcove doesn't really protect them from walking through head height. I don't really know how visible that is. But probably the bigger concern is this sort of tunnel room. A, it's quite easy to hold as a defensive player, just kind of like spamming. But also, I think it's really kind of like awkward slash degenerate when a lot of your team is up here. This is not where you want the main red hole to be. It should be in this space and this space, kind of like using the width of your map. And this is also where the tunnel routes sort of like connect, so it makes sense. I would say the way these two rooms interact, these two pressure the defending team not be able to really hold there, so I have to kind of hold back and play a little bit of whack-a-mole, and then I'd say that's kind of like the fun aspect. But I do think this is exactly kind of the same problem I said before, where from this one position, I kind of watch all the attacking holds. There's no real rotation needed. So I don't think that route would be bad if it was just a little bit more informed or integrated into the rotation plan. Currently, red doesn't really need to move much. That attacking route is quite degenerate because there's no way you'll be holding far forward enough to prevent that spawn route and this route. It would be very ineffective. So you'll never be able to prevent people from crossing. If they do cross, they kind of just pop up, like I said, behind. You would be expecting to fight here, and then a person shows up behind you. Or even worse, they show up all the way behind, like the hold here. So say you're a medic here, holding, feeling pretty comfortable. You have no idea that person crossed, no idea that person crossed this way, no idea they crossed this way until they appear on your head. And that's rather unfun, I'd say, to have this kind of feeling like, oh, that person just appeared behind me. Besides that, I think I rather like first point. There were a few things that I think I mentioned before, like you can still kind of like snipe across this and be like a tiny head on the staircase. So having the staircase in combat is quite favored for the player with the staircase. So having stickies like this, it's quite hard to splash me or even see me or react to me. Besides that, moving to the second point, I think a lot of people kind of had trauma, I would say, from pushing this point in the past. I don't really think it's resolved because this is probably the main route people want to push, but if they get stuffed, what are their options? This is a good way of having leverage over the door. and also being the sightline, I do kind of like this geometry right here. But if I want to rotate, how do I rotate to a different way to push? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Around 8 seconds for like a full respawn. Meanwhile, red team, yeah, oh, there's no pressure on this door. How do I rotate? That's that easy to watch like 3 doors. Just from the point, they can do it quite easily. Even from the back wall here, say I'm like a sniper, I'm sniping that. Now I'm sniping this. Like there was, I don't even think they really need to move their head because of this little slope here as well. So this is like a very powerful position that's quite hard to contest because all the doors are exposed and a long rotate for the attackers. Probably the long rotate is the more brutal thing. Because also, if I'm over here, I'm attacking. Oh no, this door's stuffed. Let me rotate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, roughly, right? So quite a long rotation route to get from there to there as an attacker. When in reality, I think you need this nice, I call it a staging area. It's the area you want to mass up pre-push. Where is that for this point? Because it's not really here. This is too far back. Someone puts a teleporter here, they're feeding their team there, and these other routes get ignored, right? So where would you put a teleporter if you want your team to kind of like evenly feed into all the routes? Like right here, but even then, like, do people really want to go down this pit? It doesn't exactly feel natural until they get like stuffed in other ways. So having like a nice main connector room, I would say, where you can then rotate between these routes, even if it's just kind of like a light rotation, like 4 or 5 seconds, that would be much nicer than what is now, I think, which is quite a long rotation. Also, being stuck in this pit, especially as an attacker, kind of sucks because you don't really find a way to like rotate or capitalize. You have to expose yourself onto these high grounds, and just from kind of like this staircase, you can see I don't have a lot of room to work with. That doesn't. If any defender immediately comes on this point, they can have all my retreat routes covered. There's not a lot of geometry to play around in these exposed open spaces. That's the word I'd look for, right? So if I'm a sniper, I gotta jump up here. All this space, I have so many free shots on you before you can even get close to me. So, yep, that's what I consider. Oh, sorry, no, go to a wall. This next point, I guess it's worth mentioning, this is kind of like the natural rollout because you're approaching at this angle, so people will instinctively come this way, like this. And then I have almost the exact same problem where's your staging area? Where do you actually want players to like get teleported to so they can push all routes equally? If it's up here, this side basically summarizes how I feel about this point as an attacker. There is 2 options, left and right, and that is what 95% of people will do. They'll teleport up here and be like, I will push this small choky tunnel, which leads into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kind of tiny doorways, each one of which can be stickied or splashed or, juggled in. So all this tiny space is really hard to push. Or this, where I have free glass vision all the way, which means if anyone jumps, I just pre-fire them and they die, which is very degenerate, I'd say, because they have no idea you're there. So you can just lure people into dying continuously, because you just fire here while they jump. Very awkward. But I can't even spam the sentry very well because it's a left-handed peek. So it's as a normal soldier, it's very difficult for you to peek because it comes out of the right hand of your face, right? Same thing for demo men. So it being offset like this actually makes it quite hard to spam and leverage this space, especially because it's actually possible for a lot of classes to use this sharp corner to ambush you, which you can't really see because the wall cuts off there. And then these lower routes, I was thinking about this. If you're a defender, right, and you manage to sneak in, because remember they spawn over there. So if I come through this route, come like this, and then ignore that, go like this, no attacker will ever come down here. It doesn't make sense, because if you're rolling out, and you're going like this, right, you know that way's there. Technically this way might be faster, right? But you would never go all the way around to pop out right underneath, walking 2 seconds, right? So this route is just a free flank, kind of like space, safe space. So if I'm trying to harass the attacking team, pretty much no one will follow you down here unless they're chasing you, which is quite interesting, I'd say. It's kind of like a functional flank support route. But also, if you're attacking, that route comes very unnaturally, as did, I believe, in many of the playtests pushing this main route. I think maybe the side route, instead of being like inset and around and up, it would be nicer if it was integrated into the main. So I saw quite a few people like think, okay, once I get past this, there's like some alcove to the right I can use. And they go like this, and they realize it's a dead end, and then they die. Where I was like, oh, actually, it could make sense for it to like come around out onto, I would say, like a platform here, Maybe this platform helps
Hey,
dislodge
whip!
players behind that fence, or whatever we call this computer station block. And then once that computer station block is dislodged, it's much easier for these players to come in. Maybe these players can like come in and support as well. I wasn't really a huge fan of this kind of like maze because this wraps all the way behind in a really weird, uninstinctive way. Like I see as a defender, someone go through that tunnel. I think they're gonna pop up behind, like there, right? But this isn't really the tunnel that leads to this. They would have to do like a loop de loop and be like a mobile class to get up here. It's just they pop up right there. So going here leads here. Do you see how that's kind of weird? I don't know if I can describe that better. Uh, but if it does make sense, just ignore it, honestly. But I do think the infiltration route, it feels to me it should lead to some significant ground over the point if you manage to commit through all this space this far. That's kind of how I feel about that as well. Like higher risk, but better reward as well. A little bit of staging ground over the last point, which can always be dislodged by the defenders because they can also go. That's quite an exposed route that can also flush them out. It's not like a free route where I'd say this is comparatively up until like I don't know the third door free. This is also comparatively free because there's no way the defending team will be able to have like a stronghold in this tunnel. Okay, I think that's kind of the main things I had to think about. Hopefully this recording makes sense. Let me know if there's any thoughts, comments, questions, and like I mentioned before, or I hope I mentioned, these are just kind of like to inspire you. I don't really want to bully you into making changes. If anything makes sense, feel free to do it. If it doesn't, feel free to reach out and ask me for clarification or advice. All right, see ya.